Hey guys, Kyle, the Death Knight of Anime here, bringing you a very late night review of Eden Zero Chapter 117. Okay, so obviously with the bulk of this chapter's focus being on the fight between, well, pretty much Shiki and Orc, the one thing I do need to talk about is how easily that pretty much Shiki beat Orc once he activated Overdrive. And I have seen a bit of the backlash already on this, saying stuff like Orc shouldn't have lost that quickly or easily against Shiki's Overdrive, and honestly, I'd say it would have been less realistic if he didn't lose that fast because just a quick reminder, on top of the fact that this is the same, on top of the fact that we're talking about the same power Dragon Joe wielded against Shiki before even he had awoken his own overdrive, Orc, for however strong he may be or whatever position he holds, is still just Poseidon Nero's underling, meaning he's weaker than Poseidon Nero. And I'd wager guess Poseidon Nero also has his own overdrive power, and I'd even and so I'd even even go so I'd even further counter that Mashima made a very smart move by waiting until the end of the chapter to have Shiki activate overdrive because honestly, if you really look at this fight as a whole, it was pretty. The entire fight itself was pretty much Shiki getting his ass kicked and forced up against a wall by orcs. So, if anything, well, pretty much Shiki he was pretty much pretty much forced into activating overdrive at that point. Like really, orc wasn't. Orc wasn't a pushover really in this chapter. He was legitimately pushing like Shiki against. He was literally over pushing like all of Shiki's boundaries to the point where, yeah, really all he could do probably at that point was to activate overdrive because well, if you really look at the fight, Orc wasn't giving him any choice really. Um, but getting into a different aspect of the fight, though, Shiki and Orc, as we see in this chapter, definitely get into a fairly heated disagreement about killing the robots on the planet, and with Orc, it's kind of a thing where to him it's orders from Poseidon Nero of purging the entire planet, and but to Shiki, he says he wants to save them. So it's two conflicting ideologies, obviously, and in some ways, I know it's kind of hard to believe, but in the very simplistic way that these two arguments are presented in this chapter, like with pretty much Orc presenting the side of the more extreme, and Shiki presenting the side of wanting to end this as peacefully as possible, they are both in some way like they are in some way both kind of legitimate arguments. I mean, I'm not gonna say that Orc or the whole idea of purging the entire is outright like moral, but it is that there are going to be times where you are going to be faced with a bit of a difficult choice, and I think so it's one where you can kind of understand both sides even if you disagree with one. Um, but but it's through this argument in itself that Shiki kind of gets exposed with just how torn up he actually is about just the notion of having to fight Ziggy in the future. I mean, it's something we always knew after the confrontation on Granville, but in this chapter with just seeing him just seeing Shiki outright break down, saying he wants to save everyone. He wants to save his grandfather. He wants to save Ziggy. He wants to save the provost. He wants everyone to just live in peace. It shows just how it shows just how much that it shows just how much the confrontation on Granville really broke really kind of broke Shiki's resolve, and everything we've seen at this point has him just been putting on a brave face in order to kind of trick himself almost into saying, yeah, I'm ready. I'm willing to do I'm willing to do whatever it takes. But as we see in this chapter, he wasn't entirely ready. Um, and in a way, this fight was almost kind of this fight with Orc was kind of a necessary one for Shiki in order to confront those personal uncertainties he had, but in order to not only confront those personal uncertainties he had, but by him defeating Orc with his overdrives, you could say it was sort of a little bit of a pretty much reaffirmation of his conviction to not only move forward, even if that meant having to fight Ziggy, but but for for pretty much but for pretty much Shiki as well with him defeating Orc. That was also a little bit of a pretty much affirmation on his part that he will do anything he can in order to protect everyone he cares about, be they humans or robots. He wants to. It was an affirmation for him that of his desire to see humans and robots coexist come to light. This was Shiki's moment where he said, "I'm going to fight. I'm ready to fight in order to achieve what I want, which is absolute peace for both human and robot and machine kind." So yeah, it was honestly a really good chapter in terms of some great Shiki development, honestly. Um, Now, obviously, the other thing to talk about with this chapter is the supposed end of the fight between Rebecca and Brittany, and I'll just say, I hope that's not the true end of the fight, and just a stopgap before like Rebecca like does some kind of counterattack. Because if it is, that would be the most massively disappointing fight I've ever seen from Rebecca. Although it does. That would be the most massively disappointing fight from Rebecca for me. Um, I've, although from, although it does kind of prove, although on the flip side, I will say it does prove further that unless you wield the power of overdrive, Team Beast isn't gonna go down so easily. And I think it was also proven in the fight between Mora and current and Homoda, which yeah, side note on that fight, it's like yeah, Mora's it's just exactly as I thought. The fight Mora is just an annoying little asshat. He really is. He's kind of a combination of like the Joker and the Mad Hatter, but if you took all like ability away from those two characters, and yeah, you put him into Mora. um And and speaking of Brittany's powers, though, for the longest time I was trying to figure out what her like every time we basically see Brittany in her cloud form, she kind of reminded me of something. I just could never really picture it. Then then when I saw her in her cloud form, I suddenly realized, oh, it's basically Smoker's ability from One Piece, although difference here is that her ability is more electrically charged, as we come to learn. Which, yeah, again, I'll give her credit. Her power is nothing to sneeze at. It's deadly. Um, Now, having said that, and as I'm recording this, the one thing that comes to mind when it comes to Rebecca's defeat in this chapter is that while I am disappointed she lost so easily, it could also be a little bit of a setup in order to introduce someone who could possibly associate Zenith. I just got that feeling right now, like because if you remember, one part of the one part of our hero's goal on this island is to find the notes of the master who's to find the notes of the person is to find the training notes of the person who basically who had basically mastered or created the pretty much state and gravity. And even though the master himself, which is is dead, I imagine that there are still someone associated with him. So yeah, I imagine that Rebecca being taken out is going to introduce that character. I don't know for sure though. Um, And of course, the whole battlefield of Team Beast versus the Eden Zero crew also alludes to one key thing to happen in the future, is that because their mission is directly from Poseidon Nero, this more or less confirms that after all this is said and done, Poseidon Nero is more than likely to shift focus to our heroes, and just the whole structure of what's going on does feel very reminiscent of the events that led to the confrontation with Drek and Joe, although this time on a much larger scale, since Poseidon Nero rules the entire Aoi cosmos as its ruler. And I'm sure if Team Beast fails, he'll send out an army next. And in general, right now, I think we're ahead of. It's something where I'm hoping this time around that our heroes are actually prepared for. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Crunchyroll. Dead Knight of NA, signing off. Later, guys.